What do you mean this amazing garment is sold out here? Well, I guess I'll just have to visit the merchant in the description below for it. Hello everyone, today I am beating Oblivion with Mercantile only. Wait, what does that even mean? Okay, so this one's a bit weird. First, this challenge is not beating the game while only leveling Mercantile. I'm not completely sure that that's even possible, considering basically everything you do will give you a point in some stat, and at low levels you're gonna level after 1 or 2 actions. What I mean is that I'm only allowed to use items I buy from merchants or that are given to me directly. Though, to be fair, the second thing only came into play like twice in the whole run. Obviously, the main objective is to beat the game, and the sub-objective is to get Mercantile to 100. Oh boy, how fun that's going to be. This time my starting race actually matters, as anyone who's ever tried to level Mercantile knows it sucks harder than Quillweave, so having it start at a high level is the play. As such, I pick Imperial as they begin with a +10 to it, and I'm off. Valen casts Vicious Mockery on me, but before I could rip the bars off ourselves and show him a good time, none other than the Emperor himself shows up to save the day. My initial thought was to hide in this corner and let the guards take care of everything, which worked like a charm, until they abandoned me. Then I had a realization that while they didn't give me something to use, Talos did give me these hands. The game then tells me to get a weapon, trying in vain to stop my absurdity, but it fails. Then immediately succeeds at this locked door. The only way to progress is to pick the lock or pick up the key, but neither of those things are transactions, so the run is dead. Now, obviously, I'm not going to stop the video at 50 seconds in, as funny as that would be, but while I'm punching goblins, I want to add a couple of behind-the-scenes things for you. First, I did consider not using my fists or the spells I got at the beginning and just running by things, but that seems unnecessary. Secondly, I originally thought to never pick up anything except gold from enemies, and while that is definitely doable, it just slows things down to the point of not really being fun, so I did let myself pick things up to sell to merchants. Eventually, I meet back up with the Emperor, and he has me pick my burst sign. Weird that he's flirting with me in a sewer, but hey, shoot your shot, my guy. I picked Thief because it seemed applicable for anyone cosplaying as a rich man, but in hindsight, I really should have gone with Warrior for the extra health and strength. In the next room over, I attempt to make myself useful, but that dream is short-lived as Mace beats Fist. As such, for the rest of the tutorial, I sit back and let the blades do all the heavy lifting. Eventually, Uriel and I have a nice heart-to-heart, and I actually managed to get the rare extended dialogue. To be honest, I didn't even know this existed until like a week before starting this run when it casually popped up on my feed and read it. To get it, you have to not be in combat, but I didn't do anything different than normal, so I'm just lucky, I guess. I complete the cycle of meet old man, get his money, he dies, and then Boris stops to try and butter me up, but he says the wrong thing by calling me an archer? On what? How did you get that? I set fire to every rat and fisted every goblin I saw. Why do you think I like bows? Whatever, it's finally time to set up my class. First, I specialize in stealth because it supposedly makes you level Mercantile faster. Spoiler, it didn't feel like it. I then pick luck and personality as my favorite attributes for no real reason, and lastly my major skills. This time I went with Mercantile, Blade, Light Armor, Heavy Armor, Destruction, Block, and Speechcraft, and create the 1% class. Now, if you're looking at that skill spread thinking it's insane, yeah, it kinda is. I kinda fucked up. My thought process was making it a major skill would give me an initial extra boost of 40 Mercantile, and it did, but since I will be leveling it, it would also level my character. I rationalized that that's good because at higher levels, better loot spawns, so more money, but I failed to take into account at higher levels, that higher loot is attached to higher level enemies, and since Blade, Block, and both armor types are my major skills, things are gonna quickly outpace my damage. Welp, that's a problem for future me, I guess. First thing I want to do is get geared up, so I head over to the market district and make my first sale, then buy some boots, a helmet, an iron short sword, and a bow with some arrows. Ah yeah, that's the savior of Cyrodiil right there. Despite having what is likely the most valuable thing on the entire continent in my possession, I am unable to sell it, so I figured I might as well hand it off to Joffrey. As such, I set out for Wayne Priory. Or at least that's what I'm telling the public. The real reason is I know Joffrey will give me some free stuff that I can then sell to build my empire. Along the way, I am stopped by another would-be millionaire who challenges me to a friendly duel. It ends in a not-so-friendly stabbing. Then, for the first time in my life, I explore this fort. Nothing happened except my realization that Boris was extremely wrong. Not in this life or any past life have I ever been an archer. Back on track, I meet with the monks who, as expected, extend their aid to me. I clean them out, I mean happily accept their gifts, which then gets turned to gold in my pocket. Want to see something fun? Leveling Mercantile by selling things is based on the actual transaction, not the amount sold, so I have to sell everything, one at a time, to maximize my level gains. Oh god, what have I gotten myself into? I buy the most valuable thing in this whole run, a few repair hammers, then charge the blacksmith to fix the rest of my stuff. I then purchase a complete set of armor. Sort of. And then set out for Kvatch. The truth is, I had no intention of stopping the Oblivion crisis, but figured doing the first Oblivion gate might give me some good gold, and I was likely to run into some bandits on the way there. Sure enough, I do, and they are no match for me, so I make a quick stop in Skingrad to sell my haul. Originally I was going to ignore Glarthier because he's annoying, but then I remembered you can make some quick and easy gold off of him. So I agree to meet him behind the church at midnight, where he tells me that there's some conspiracy out to get him and that I need to tail a few people that he believes are following him. At first I thought I would actually see the quest through, you know, be fair to Glarthier and all. Then I remembered I'm supposed to be cosplaying as a rich, so I do the only logical thing, which is tell him exactly what he wants to hear and take all of his sweet coin. After making an easy 550 septims, he gives me one final task, which is to kill everyone that conspired against him, which is to say, no one. Now I did initially think to do it, after all it's extra money, but I realized I'm not rich enough yet to get away with murder, so I just turned the note over to the guards who promptly dealt with him. I continue on my merry way to Kvatch only to find a portal to hell. Since I had just watched Glarthier's demise, I was already in a charitable mood, so I figured I would help out and close the gate. For the most part, this was a pretty normal trip to Arizona. However, I did learn that I should not rely on one weapon to carry me, as it was constantly about to break. I ended up needing to use my Talos-given sock'em boppers to take out some enemies, but unfortunately, I take my first death. I really made this harder on myself by only bringing a fire-based destruction spell, but it's fine, as long as I pull things one at a time, I can safely pummel them. Unfortunately, the run dies a second time when I am forced to pick up and then use the sigil key to progress. That sucks. So anyway, technically I did this a second time with the final door, though that one could have been lockpicked had I had one. Still, that's 3 fails in the run so far. I wonder what it'll get to. I take the glowing rock that is powering a door to a literal other dimension, as it is surely worth a fortune. What do you mean it's worthless? Well, that sucks. I mean, as far as the public is concerned, I closed the gate out of the goodness of my own heart, but whatever. Back in Skingrad, I figured it's as good a time as ever to level Mercantile, so I buy a bunch of arrows and begin selling them one at a time. I am so not looking forward to doing this. So much so that I would rather pay someone to do it for me, and since the Oblivion level grind websites no longer exist, the next best thing is to pay trainers in-game to raise my level. I head back to Coral to talk to Seedneus, whose name does not contain a joke, please YouTube don't demonetize me, and she tells me that her daughter has gone missing. Dharma has set out for a nearby settlement, Hackdirt, to do some trading but never returned. Now, I think I could have just ignored this quest and she would still teach me about Mercantile, but I figured I could use some additional levels, or more specifically the extra gold to buy levels, so why not? Before I set out though, I buy a steel claymore for extra damage and reach, but also a second weapon in case my first one starts to break. The locals of Hackdirt are rather suspicious of a big city trader like me, and any attempts to speak with them are met with hostility, but one of them is willing to fill me in. Jiv tells me that the locals here are all Cthulhu worshipping nutcases and are planning to sacrifice Dharma, so looks like here I go murdering again. Honestly, I really like this quest. There's something about it that's so, I don't know, mysterious? Jiv talks about the deep ones, but there really isn't any mention of them outside of this, at least to my knowledge. What could they have possibly found in those mines? Anyway, I free Dharma, who is more concerned with her horse than her own life, but eventually we all return to Coral to an elated Seedneus. So happy, in fact, she gives me 5 free levels in Mercantile. I honestly didn't know she would do that. When I looked up where the trainers were, I literally stopped reading at Seedneus in Coral and did not know completing this quest would give me skill points. Enough skill points, in fact, to raise my Mercantile to 50, unlocking what I would consider the most useful perk in that I can sell anything to any vendor. Now, a smart man would only sell to vendors that wouldn't normally sell the things he has, so he could easily keep track of what was sold and thus unusable and what would be new to purchase. I did not make that realization until like 7 hours in. I head back to Kvatch to lead the charge into the city, and by that I mean stand behind Savlian and let him do all the work like a true CEO. We had 2 casualties along the way, but that's nothing a bit of HR paperwork can't handle. Normally I don't bother to do the actual liberating Kvatch questline, but I did know Savlian gives up his uniform, which is free money, so I thought why not. At first it's all good. Savlian, an unnamed soldier, and myself storm the courtyard together, but quickly I am told that I must go and lower the gate and that Be Rich has the key. That's like a sign from the stars, right? That name? Well, maybe not considering he dies shortly after, so I must continue on my own. Honestly, nothing happens here, it's just scamp after scamp until I've carved my way to the guardhouse and lowered the gate. Then there's another horde of scamps waiting for us, but together we clear them out and storm the castle. Now though, it's no longer the weak stunted scamps, it's the regular full grown ones, and this is the other reason why I did the quest so early. Fun flashback to like 2007. When I first ever did this quest, I was a really high level and the area was swarming with, surprise, the highest level Daedra, making it damn near impossible. Even here, I frequently have to pull the scamps back to Savlian for the backup. Iron Gear kinda sucks and I can't wait until I have something better. I then tell Savlian that his precious count is dead and he gives me the literal clothes off his back. It's a light armored cuirass with better protection than my iron one and some minor enchantments to boot, but it's also worth a lot of money, so I sell it. I also noticed that the merchants now sell steel armor, but it's kind of expensive. Now, I know it's not very rich of me, but I thought a good way to make money would be to slum it up in the arena. Plus, it's good publicity. Future richest man in Tamriel lives life like the common working folk. Now, to actually participate, I am required to wear a light or heavy arena raiment, which is the only reason the can use gifts rule in this run exists. In hindsight though, I wish I hadn't done it at all, as I only ended up participating in 2 fights before dropping the idea altogether. No, instead of risking my own life, I thought I would gamble on others. I would have done this more as well, but the fight took forever and there was always the risk that I would be losing money, so I figured that that was enough of the arena for this playthrough and headed back to Gavatch to meet Martin, the heir to the throne and future ruler of Tamriel. So you know, it only makes sense that we're friends. Together we head to Wayne Priory, which is currently under attack by the Mythic Dawn. We fight our way to Joffrey, who is worried the cult took Martin's necklace. They did, and while that makes Joffrey sad, he's also happy that the party now has a priest in addition to monk and bard. The 3 of us then head to Sky Ruler Temple, where Joffrey shows me that skinwalkers are a thing in the Elder Scrolls games. Body horror aside, Joffrey tells me I should meet with Boris and see if he's learned anything else about the Mythic Dawn. Boris is relaxing in a pub, believing that a random patron in the corner is following him. I figured I would humor him, and it turns out, he was right. Boris is about to get the old backstab treatment, but being the decent, moral human being that I am, I intervened. I find a book on his body and am instructed to take it to Taormina, a local scholar, as she knows a thing or two about Daedric cults. Turns out there are 4 volumes of this book, and if I am to get anywhere, I need to collect all 3. Taormina gives me volume 2 and tells me to check in on the 1st edition and ask about the 3rd and 4th. Fentius here has a copy of the 3rd volume, but he won't part with it as it is a special order for another customer. I do my best at buttering him up, but to no avail. Obviously, I'm not going to spend money on this peasant, so instead I wait for the patron to show up looking for his book. I then, politely and not threateningly at all ask Gwyneth to turn the book over to me, and at first he refused, but upon being told the Mythic Dawn are the ones who murdered the Emperor, he wants nothing to do with them. Somebody really should have taught this man, the crazier they are, the better they. Fortunately, Gwyneth also tells me how to get the 4th volume, and it's to meet with someone calling themselves the Sponsor. I was curious to know if I could skip giving the books to Taormina, so I decided to wait at the map location until noon, but then suddenly Boris shows up out of nowhere. Unfortunately, I can't tell him to just leave me alone, so I agree to go with him. But for those of you wondering, no, you can't activate the map without the books. Boris and I then venture into a CEO's natural habitat, and things got a bit weird. First, when we went through a door, Boris completely disappeared. Now sometimes in this game, if you go through a door first, the NPC won't follow you until you return and hold it open for them, but this time he was just completely gone. I wasn't sure what to do, so I just continued on hoping loading the next area would fix it. It did, but Boris kinda didn't. As funny as this was, the game usually warns me it's going to crash by glitching out, so I restarted it and returned Boris to his functioning self. I told him I would meet the sponsor because I thought me fighting one enemy and him too seemed like the appropriate distribution of work. Unfortunately, I'm very susceptible to being electrocuted, and any chance Tamriel had at a normal future is gone. Second try, I let Boris take the lead, and I thought a smart plan would be to get behind the sponsor to sandwich him between us, but I jumped the gun early and he was able to back into the other room. It ended up being a 2-on-1, but luckily for me, one fell off the staircase and I was able to finish off his friend. Unluckily for me, the moment I peeked, I caught a lightning bolt to the face. Third try, we managed to successfully tag team Raven, and after his death, I took his valuables, then helped Boris clean up the ads. With all 4 books in hand, I return to Taormina, who tells me to come back the following day to see if she's made progress or not. That's great and all, but even better news is that I now have enough coin to buy some steel armor, a much needed improvement over my iron. I also decided at this point to ditch any light armor plans and just go full heavy for the extra protection. I don't actually need Taormina to explain the books to me, as at this point I can just go to the Imperial Gardens and wait, again, for the map to reveal itself. I then set out for Lake Eris Caverns, the secret base of the Mythic Dawn. Now as you know, there is a choice here between joining and murder. Since joining means I am given a robe, I can't really do that, so murder it is. I actually quell my bloodlust in the main room, as there are many guards around the Mysterium Xarxes, and honestly, I bet at least one of those people know I have a weakness to being shocked to death, so I wait until the crowd thins out. At this point, I tell Ruma that she is the light of my life, and that attracts her and her bodyguard. Fortunately, they don't stick together, so I can peacefully enliven them one at a time. I then free Gilius so someone can spread the word that I am not a monster and take the Mysterium Xarxes. At this point, alkalites begin flooding the room, but their robes are no match for my sword, and I cut them down with ease. To be honest, I have no idea how the cult recovers after this. I mean, sure, all of them are reborn in Mankar's paradise, but with no mortal servants left, how are they going to recruit new members? Oh well, I spare no one in my crusade, and after the cave is cleared out, I return the book to Martin. He says he'll need time to decipher it, and I should speak with Joffrey about some spies. Doing so, I am told the spies like to hang out at a nearby rock at dusk, and when I say nearby, I mean it's so close, IRL me could throw a football that far. Probably. I easily dispatched the spy Gerald, then talked to Captain Bird, who was surprised one of his soldiers was a Mythic Dawn traitor. You think you know a guy, am I right? Bird then gives me permission to search Gerald's residence, to which I find a secret base with secret plans to destroy Bruma with an embarrassing photo of SpongeBob at the Christmas party. Wait, no, sorry, wrong gag, everyone! Strangely, I am 2 for 2 on the second spy not being where the game thinks they should be, but maybe it's because it's dusk, so the other one is out rock gazing. Sure enough, they are, and now they can rest in paradise, which, spoiler, is like, totally not that. Martin then tells me he has deciphered the first part of the puzzle and that we will need the blood of a Daedra Lord, or rather a Daedric artifact. The game points you to Azura Star, but to change it up I thought I would do Clavicus Vial as I discovered the shrine earlier. Except there are 2 problems. To speak with him I have to offer 500 septims and I don't have that. Secondly, when I looked it up, you apparently have to be level 20 to start the quest, which I am most certainly not, so yeah, Azura Star looking pretty nice at this point. To be fair, I could have done a couple of the other quests, but it was late. I figured the vampires would probably have good loot to sell. You know how it goes. I mean, we all make mistakes in the heat of passion, Jimbo. Either way, I pray at the Shrine of Azura, and she speaks to me, telling me that long ago, some dedicated followers of hers set out to fell a powerful vampire. They succeeded, but at the cost of becoming unholy creations themselves. As such, I needed to free them from this immortal coil. Initially, I planned on exploiting the vampire's weakness to fire, which worked. Kinda. The problem is that my flare spell does practically nothing in general, so you know, the extra damage is kinda negligible. The second and much larger problem is that when they decided to attack me 2-on-1, I couldn't handle it. I bailed out of the cave hoping they would follow me and be damaged by the sun. I ended up running all the way back to the shrine where I found a nice rock to sit on and wait for my magicka to come back so I could heal and take pot shots at them. One of them was indeed severely allergic to being set on fire and goes down in just a handful of flares, but the orc not only resisted it, at least somewhat, but could also heal herself and shoot lightning. So I had to just heal up and then wait for my opportunity to strike. The fourth vampire was an archer mage who had very little in the way of physical defense, so not a problem, but the last one is once again a heavy armor clad warrior. I ended up leading this one outside too and thought he was one hit away from death, but I was wrong. Second try, I don't underestimate him and am rewarded with Azura Star. At this point, I returned to Bruma and had a choice to make. See, I was afflicted with the vampire disease, and I realized it's kinda in character to be a literal blood-sucking monster in addition to a figurative one, but I honestly didn't want to deal with that. So I thought, great, I'm gonna need to find a cure disease potion for sale, but then I realized, no, the richer people are, the more they fake being a devoted believer, so it's also in character for me to pray my afflictions away at a chapel. Why yes, the mental gymnastics for this run did hurt, why do you ask? I hand the artifact over to Martin, who is in awe at its beauty, then tells me Joffrey would like to speak to me. I am informed that a gate to Oblivion has opened just outside Bruma, and I am to show Bird and his men how to close one. Before that though, I return to the Imperial City to check if any of the vendors have restocked, and here I am hit with another glitch. The Mystic Emporium is locked. I've never seen this happen before, but apparently it's not too uncommon. Supposedly you can pick the lock and it just reopens, or you can cast a command to unlock it, but I figured that it wasn't that important. Also, I was apparently attacked by Mythic Dawn sleeper agents without even knowing. But the guards know who they serve. Anyway, back to the matter at hand. I take Bird to the plane of Oblivion, and he is an absolute Chad tearing through any Daedra we encounter. This gate plays out pretty normally, until the very end. Did you see it? Here, let me play it back. The fucking Sigil Keeper slipped off the platform. Now, the door can be opened by lockpicking. Except I never bought any of those, so my options were to either go all the way back out of the dungeon and buy a lockpick, then come all the way back, or find the Sigil Keeper's body. Since I saw it fall, it would make sense if it was at the bottom. It wasn't. I then checked each and every level, but still no body. Eventually, I decided the only logical solution was to follow the Sigil Keeper's lead and throw myself off the ledge. I am honestly surprised that this did not kill me. I make my way to the rim of the shaft and find the Sigil Keeper's body. In hindsight, this was stupid, as taking and using the key is another fail for the run, and I could have just left to buy a lockpick from Shady Sam and kept going, but whatever. Regardless, Bird and I enter the final room, dispatch the Dremora within, and take the worthless rock from its pedestal. As the gate closes, it rains naked men, not something that was on my Oblivion bingo card, but that's fine, and return to Cloud Ruler Temple. Martin has figured out the next ingredient, which is the blood of a god. That sounds rather difficult to obtain, but Joffrey has a MacGuffin. He explains that Tiber's septum ascended to godhood, so maybe his blood would suffice, and some of it could likely be found on his armor, which is housed in Sancre Tor. However, at this point I was also given the Allies for Bruma quest, which sees me travel to each capital city and request allies for Bruma. Normally, I completely ignore this quest, but I figured it would be good to get a few more levels under my belt. So I first talked to Chancellor Okado, who, roleplaying as a high-ranking member of the court perfectly, gives me fuck all. Next, I head back to Kvatch, and this is kind of the reason I did the quest earlier, was because I knew I wanted to do allies for Bruma, so all I have to do is speak with Savlain, who agrees to give me a couple of his soldiers. After this though, I basically just have to go to every major city and close the nearby Oblivion gate in order for them to send aid. I knew there would probably be a lot of loot, so I made the smart decision to buy Ease Burden and Protect to be able to carry more stuff and, well, protect myself. I won't bore you by taking you through every gate, so instead here are the highlights. In the Coral Gate, I slipped and fell off a bridge. In the Anvil Gate, I get shoulder bashed into Oblivion, pun intended. After closing it, I bought a Silver Claymore both for more damage, but also because I knew it would be useful real soon. Absolutely nothing of note happened in the Breville Gate. Jane, seriously, don't show that. The Shadenhall Gate itself has nothing interesting, but there is a fun little side quest that can be done during it where I have to save the Count's son who's off playing Knight. Looks like it didn't go so well. Farwill can be found just outside the Citadel Tower, and despite losing 4 of the 5 men he came here with, he wants to press on. Just for fun, I decided I would try and keep them alive. Honestly, I was weight scumming after every fight anyway, so it wouldn't be that much different. Together we close the portal, and I am named an Honorary Knight of the Thorn. In addition to receiving aid for Bruma, I can also select one of 2 artifacts. I ended up going with Thornblade because I thought it looked cooler, not sure which one was worth more, but I decided to hold on to it because it's enchanted in case something happens to my silver weapons. I take a quick break to buy Snowball considering fire immune flame Atronax are spawning, and I also track down Shady Sam to buy some lockpicks in the event of another Sigil Keeper having a workplace related accident. Back on track, the Leyawind Gate actually has nothing of note and I close it without an issue. The Skingrad Gate is much the same, and with that all major cities are safe from the Oblivion Crisis. Well, except for Bruma I guess, but that's the whole point. On my way to Sanker Tor, I happen across Capstone Cave, which is a relatively short dungeon with some bandits in it. Normally this is something that would just be ignored, but I noticed the one outside had a Dwarven battle axe, and not only was it Dwarven, it was enchanted. Translation? The rich are about to get richer. So I cleared it out and sold my spoils. At this point I'm starting to make some real coin, and it's all getting funneled into Seedneas for mercantile training. Also repair hammers, but that's fine. And it was at this point I realized my full potential as a seedy businessman. The blades liked me, which means the stuff in Cloud Ruler Temple isn't marked as stolen if I take it. So I take everything that isn't bolted to the ground or worth 0 septums. I made about 900 gold doing this, which is more than I thought I would, but I'm sure the blades won't need those books or swords or anything. In the Imperial City, I noticed the vendors had Dwarven items for sale, and I think those are possible merchant spawns now, but I wasn't completely sure I didn't sell those, so instead I buy a silver longsword. Finally, I arrive at Sanker Tor. Outside are a bunch of skeletons who gave me a surprising amount of trouble, but then I realized that they would follow me to the top of the ruins and I could just push them off, letting gravity help me out a bit. Inside is much easier, it's just a bunch of ghosts and ancient ghosts, but my silver claymore makes pretty quick work of them. Though the whole knocking me down with negative fatigue thing kinda sucks. Eventually, I free the first ghost of the blades, and he promises to help me by removing the seal to Tiber Septim's armor. The only problem though is that his bones are now on fire. Listen, I've seen enough Supernatural to know that his ghost ain't gonna last very long, so I better hurry. The second blade has a shield that reflected damage, which was annoying but nothing I couldn't handle. The third has his Disintegrate armor on Strike Katana, which was a lot less of a pain considering my armor this time isn't made out of used tissues. And the last one has the katana with frost damage, overall a super easy Sanker Tor run. Together the 4 ghosts release the barrier blocking Tiber Septim's armor, and I am free to take it. Returning it to Martin, he then tells me that he has figured out the 3rd piece of the puzzle, which is a Great Welkin Stone. Due to their immense value, which yes of course got my attention, it is thought that they have all been plundered, but it is rumored that there's still one in Miskarkand. I didn't really expect the dungeon to be an issue, especially because I found an elven longsword for sale giving me some serious damage. The beginning of Miskarkand is pretty simple, lots of low-level goblins and mostly weak skeletons. Also, I haven't been showing it, but because my armor and weapons are so heavy, I have to leave after every 2 encounters to sell things. The reason I bring it up specifically at this time though is that I found a full dwarven set and shield for sale boosting my defenses. I also bought the Lightfoot boots, which give 25 points of feather so I could carry more stuff. At this point I am as prepared as I can be, and the rest of Miskarkand is mostly painless. There was a spot where I nearly got boned by a few skeletons, but running away really saved me. When I grabbed the Great Welkin Stone, the undead king and his 2 zombie lackeys spawn. My first thought was to obliterate the king since I can actually deal some amount of damage. This plan did not go well. Second try, I grab the stone and leap off the side in an attempt to beat one zombie up before the other one could close the distance. At this point, all I had to do was keep the second one between me and the king so he wouldn't shoot lightning or balls of Aldrain at me. With both zombies dead, the plan now is to not die, which is kinda tough when one lightning bolt does like 1/4 of my health. I haven't mentioned it, but for most of this run, my health pool was kinda really low. Like the first 5 or so levels, it was base 100, which is 100% why I was dying early game. Now that we are in the much later game and I am playing catch up, the higher level enemies are still outpacing me, and I can't heal myself for a lot because I didn't focus Restoration or High Magicka with willpower, but I'm sure it's fine, not like I'm going to be fighting groups of enemies in the near future. So anyway, I return to Martin, who tells me I'm going to be fighting groups of enemies. Specifically that we need to let the Mythic Dawn conjure the Great Oblivion Gate outside Bruma because I need to charge in and take the Great Sigil Stone from it, as it is the final piece to open the doorway to Paradise. I inform the Countess of Bruma about Martin's plan. She is understandably concerned, but we assure her that with all her troops and the Hero of Kvatch here, nothing bad will happen. Right, so this time I don't loot mid-fight, making myself over-encumbered, and everything goes according to plan. The Great Gate opens and I dive in. Initially, I wasn't super worried about this, as a lot of things are spread out, so I won't be fighting many enemies at the same time. That is until I tried to wait and the game informs me that I can't do that here. You know, on account of the imminent death of Bruma thing. Honestly, it would have been hilarious if it did let me wait and the game just immediately told me the world ended, but whatever. The only reason why this is an issue is I don't have a way to easily heal myself. I never bought healing potions or leveled anything that could help with it. So the first issue came when I entered the final tower to open the gates and a clan fear decided to ruin my day. Not only could it do a substantial amount of damage to me, but it has damage reflection, so hitting it also hurts. This thing killed me twice before I could push it off the ledge to its death. The second problem came near the top of the tower when I went from a decent amount of health to fatally wounded in about 4 seconds. Now, living this is great, but the Sigil Keeper is still up there, and honestly, I probably wouldn't survive a blocked light attack, let alone anything else he could throw at me. Yep, just as I thought. The solution I had was to wait a moment and try and heal, then just backpedal and hope for the best. Wait, backpedal? That's it, I have 65 in luck, maybe I can pull this off. That is actually the most clutch knockdown I've ever gotten. Also, I failed the run here, again, but this time I had lockpicks, so... I mean, if you want to throw me a bone, it didn't have to fail. Guys, no way, you don't need to type angry comments about how I'm so stupid for constantly failing in the sigils, please! Jane, stop encouraging them. In the final room, I don't have the health or time to fight the enemies, so I just grab the Great Worthless Rock and then nearly get crushed by the siege engine as I return to Bruma. At this point, I'm only a couple of quests away from finishing the main story, so I figured it was time to push for 100 Mercantile. I could do this by buying a bunch of arrows and selling them one at a time, but honestly that sounds awful, so instead I plan on just using a trainer for 5 levels, then leveling up and repeating the process until I'm maxed. Unfortunately, that means I'm going to need a lot of money. Not only for the actual levels, but also the Master Trainer requires me to be holding 10,000 septums. After picking the battlefield clean, I have nearly 8,000, so I went to a nearby cave, capstone, and once again murder hoboed all the bandits inside. I was able to get to 70 in Mercantile to start the Master Trainer quest, but in doing so I had to spend money, bringing me below the 10k necessary. I was only about 2,000 away, so I wondered if there was something in the world I could easily get that could just be sold for that. My first thought was Fingleam, which is an enchanted glass helmet hidden west of Anvil. Its market price is about 2,400, but obviously no merchant will buy it for that, and even if they would, I don't know if any merchant has that amount of gold without me investing in their shop first. Sure enough, I only got about 800 for it. So I fast traveled around to a few camps, picking off bandits for the loot, wondering how I can make fast, easy money. I actually ended up back at Hackdirt, hoping the villagers would have useful stuff and would possibly be hostile to me. Well, half of that was right. While not lining my pockets, this is actually great because the Brethren are all using shit tier weapons, meaning I can tank a lot of hits to get heavy armor and block experience, which I will need so I can level up to continue using the trainers. About 500 septums away, I found myself in Rickety Mine, which is a gold mine for loot, pun intended. It's absolutely filled with bandits and even a bandit ringleader which has better than average gear. After clearing half of it, my pockets were stuffed with loot and I was able to cross the 10k threshold, meaning Palinira would finally teach me. The 10,000 is only necessary to make her train you, but the moment she will, you're able to blow it, so I buy 5 levels and proceed to boast, admire, joke, coerce, discard for a few minutes until I increase speechcraft enough to level my character up. Now, this is great and all, but the training is still expensive, so I need a way to make the money back. I caved and looked it up, and one common suggestion was to make and sell potions. I know there's an exploit in Skyrim that lets you make ludicrous amounts of money and skill gain in alchemy and enchanting with minimal prep and time, but I don't know if that exists in Oblivion. Regardless, my alchemy skill is rock bottom, so the potions I make are worth about 7 septums on average. I'm sure this could reap great rewards, but it ain't gonna get me rich fast. No, it seemed my only real viable strategy for making money was murder. You know, like real capitalism. I basically hopped between Capstone Cave, Rickety Mine, and a couple random camps killing the bandits. I fast traveled, and including the time spent stopping in cities to sell things, the rotation was basically always up. Fun fact, I did originally think to stop at Hector to help level my other skills so I didn't need to play the disposition minigame over and over, but the Brethren nearly Piper parried me to death at one point, so I took that out of the rotation. Second, probably actual fun fact, this run used to have an additional sub-goal of buying every home in Cyrodiil, which then got lowered to the one in Skingrad as it's the most expensive, which then got lowered to none. Sure, I could have just kept grinding money, and if I got to a higher level I would have started looting enchanted Daedric stuff to really bring in some dough, but it was honestly just a slog. This grinding session took me about 3 hours, so I wasn't super keen on making it any longer. Anyway, after basically cutting the population of Cyrodiil in half, I'm able to hit 100 in Mercantile. What's my reward? Fucking nothing! All the shops now have 500 additional gold. Whee! That absolutely wasn't worth it. Whatever, let's go save the world. I meet up with Martin, who has been patiently waiting to send me to paradise. He opens a portal and I step in. I immediately regret this decision when I am triple teamed by a pile of electric rocks, evil Frozone, and a fucking dragon. Fortunately, my training from the Azura vampires taught me well and I leaped upon a nearby rock. First priority is the Storm Atronac because it has lightning and is already at low health. The problem is that all three of these enemies have ranged attacks, so I have to constantly be watching to dodge and manage my magicka to heal and be on the offensive. I tried outspacing the Daedroth with my Claymore, which kind of worked. I mean, it worked well enough, and then there was only one, so I patiently healed until I was ready to drop down and take care of him. That was a tough battle. I'm sure it's going to be smooth sailing from here on out. Eventually, I make my way to Cathatut, who is the easiest part of this whole dungeon. I challenge him to a duel, and despite setting me on fire, he's an easy smash. The problem is, I failed the run again. Had I chose the path of less dominance, he would have given me the bands, but since I put him down, I had to take them off his body. I really just wasn't thinking after the first Oblivion gate, was I? Well, whatever, I ain't stopping now. In the Forbidden Grotto, I play Ring Around the Stalagmite type with this Clanfear, then meet everyone's favorite two-timing double-crosser, Eldamil. He promises to remove the ban so I can escape the grotto if I actually kill Mankar. He betrayed his people once by siding with Dagon, now he's betraying Mankar by helping me, but I'm sure he can be trusted this time. The next fight is one of the toughest. At worst, it's 2 Storm Atronacs and 2 Clanfear, also Eldamil being stupid. I died several times here. What I was trying to do was push the enemies into the lava, but for some reason, the Storm Rocks just weren't cooperating with me. Eldamil constantly respawns, which is good because he straight up walks into the lava multiple times, but even while alive, he has trouble holding aggro. Eventually though, I managed to pull 1 Atronac at a time, and despite not being in combat anymore, Eldamil still walked into the lava off screen. As I ascend the steps to Mankar's palace, I decided peace wasn't an option and attempted to rip apart Ruma and Raven. The problem here is twofold. 1, I don't kill Raven fast enough to actually start the Mankar fight alone, and 2, he does enough damage to me that I have to wait to heal anyway. Whatever, I enter the throne room and start slashing at anything in my way. Cameron, Summon, Eldamil, anything and everything is fair game. It didn't work. Second try, I change absolutely nothing about this plan, and this time I win, taking down Mankar and his paradise. I return the Amulet of Kings to Martin, again a waste considering its value, and together we set off for the Imperial City. Just as my good friend Martin is about to be crowned ruler of Tamriel, the Daedra storm the city, a last-ditch effort to take over. Now we must get to the Temple of the One so Martin can light the dragon fires, but I still need to turn a profit so I loot as we go, which proves to be my downfall as I am too heavy to move. Second try, I tell myself I'll wait until after the fight to loot, but that still doesn't help me. Not having access to the abundance of potions the game gives me is really making living an issue. Third try, we managed to clear out the garden and... right, I can't wait here. Great, awesome. Now, I could just normally wait for my magicka to regen and heal that way, but that's really slow. Also, I never noticed, but Martin gives a speech to the soldiers. That's actually kind of neat. The next area is filled with powerful Daedra, like way stronger and more numerous than I'm able to help with, but I try anyway and catch a fireball to the gut. Second try, Mehrunes Dagon has arrived, but Martin has a plan, and together we must fight our way to the Temple of the One. On the next try, I thought I would just stay out of harm's way. Oh god damn it, Martin. After like 7 retries, Martin and I make it inside the temple where Martin smashes the valuable gemstone and my hopes and dreams, turning himself into a dragon to fight off Dagon, bringing an end to the Oblivion crisis. Thank you everyone for watching, and an extra special thanks to my patrons. Stay beautiful, y'all. If you're watching this on YouTube and want to see more right now, why not consider subscribing to my Patreon, because for as little as $3 a month, you can help support me and the channel and see the next video live right now. But until next time, my friends, dawn is breaking.